Welcome to Every Night is Game Night, because we all love game nights with our family and friends. But when you play solo games, then every night can be a game night. Check us out along with other great podcasts at dicetowernetwork.com.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 177. Marvel at Sorcerer Cat's Last Bastion. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Every Night is Game Night, the podcast that helps you get your head in the game. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. I have some reviews to pound out. Usually when I do these reviews, it's like, all right, what am I going to do? I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about this. This time, it's like, this man posted on Twitter and put my entire content worth of episode, just put it up on Twitter. It's like, I'm playing all these games. So I had to reach out to him. He's my good friend. You've heard him on the show many, many times before. This is the Brandt from the Portal Gaming Podcast. Welcome to the show, Brandt.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, Jason. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome. It's my show.
Yeah. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. How you doing, my friend?
Pretty good. I'm getting over being a little bit, well, actually quite sick. But I think other than that, everything's going well. Actually, the reason I played all these games is because I was homesick for multiple days and had to take solace in gaming. So that's what I did. I played a whole bunch of games.
We have a couple of solo playable games for you this week. But before we get to that, we have two announcements or two little items of business. The first is you may have recognized the intro music. It is a little bit different than what we usually play. That is, if you don't know, the intro music to Low Player Count. Low Player Count is a podcast. It is a predecessor to Every Night is Game Night in terms of the solo-focused content and just general chicanery and discussion. They just ended their run. So I wanted to take a minute to give them a shout-out. Brandt, did you listen to Low Player Count? Are you familiar with Travis and the boys over there?
Yeah, Travis I'm most familiar with. Definitely met up with him. One year at Gen Con, he was working next to the Dice Tower booth, and so we chatted for a long time. Whatnot. And I was actually on an episode of Low Player Count.
I did not know that.
I did a segment
really.
on Ash's Rise of the Phoenixborn. So,
No, that you took me by surprise there. I listened to a lot of the episodes. I must have missed yours.
There you go.
All right, so they just ended their run, Travis, Donny, and Shawn. We haven't had a ton of interaction between Low Player Count and this podcast. You've heard Travis's voice in here a couple of times. Just wanted to say, they mentioned on the show that it's kind of hard to know the impact that you have on people when you're a content creator, and you get a little bit of dribble here and there of people responding, participating in the community and everything. But I wanted to take the time to say, you guys really helped me when I was first getting into solo gaming. I remember it was a podcast you guys had done top 3 solo between the 3 of you and something, and you guys opened me to Mage Knight, and you opened me to Navajo Wars, and a couple of the other games that are kind of seminal in the solo space. So I wanted to just take a minute and say thank you guys very much. Congratulations on your run, and best of luck to whatever you have going for you in the next phase of your lives. So rulebook writing or raising kids, whatever it is, good luck, guys. All right. The second item of business is the In Liz We Trust segment. But we are not going to do the In Liz We Trust segment. I'm going to hijack that for a week, and it's going to dovetail with our first game. Brandt, have you any interest in Wonderland's War?
I do have interest in Wonderland's War. This is from Skybound Games, right?
Skybound in cooperation with Druid City.
Oh, nice. Oh, James Hudson's company.
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, it definitely looks interesting. I saw some of the minis. I saw it being played both at PAX and at Gen Con. It definitely had a lot of table presence, even though it was very prototype. So, yeah, I don't know a lot about how it plays, but definitely I'm interested.
Looks like drafting, bag building, area control. It's one of those things where you look at the description, you can't quite get what's going on, but it sounds like it's minis on the table and going back and forth. They don't usually cover these type of games, but it's James Hudson. I think he's a really, really cool guy. We're about to review one of his games. And Druid City just pumps out family-friendly, accessible stuff, and they're taking advantage of not the usual IP. I love games that just are not Cthulhu and not the usual stuff. It is Alice in Wonderland. That's public IP. Glad that they are taking advantage of it. So that is Wonderland's War. Go ahead and check that out on Kickstarter. All right, so let's get back to the games we're going to review. We're going to review Sorcerer City from Druid City Games. We're going to review Isle of Cats from, what's Frank's company called?
City of Games.
City of Games, just like the City of Kings that he released first of all. We are going to discuss Last Bastion, which is the reiteration of Ghost Stories, and then we are going to revisit Marvel Champions. Brett has kept up with the content, and he has played a couple of the further expansions, so we're checking on that. But first, let's get to Sorcerer City. So, Sorcerer City is a tile-laying, quote-unquote, deck-building game. So there are two genres. You hear this a lot. Like, okay, I would like, say, recommend for me a tile laying game. I've played Carcassonne. I want something else. Or recommend me a deck building game. I've played Dominion. Recommend me something else. Well, if you want the confluence of those two games, then Sorcerer City is going to be the product for you. And very, very basically, it is a game in which you're going to start with a stack of tiles, like 12, and everybody starts with the same stack of tiles. And over the course of a 2-minute timer, you're going to be laying that out in a one by one, laying your tiles and trying to score as well as possible. Some of the tiles have scoring shields, little icons, and you're trying to make colored rows or colored uninterrupted sections of shapes. So, you want to make a 4 red, so it gives you 4 red resource, which is influence. You want to make a line of 5 gold out of the tiles that you're laying. So you do that for 2 minutes, and then you go to a market phase where, depending on how much gold you made in your city, you're going to be buying tiles from a market. As you buy more tiles, your deck obviously gets more complicated, and over the next 4 rounds, you're going to play this ever more complicated, ever growing set of tiles, trying to score as much as possible. You're going to be scoring your face off in this game. You make 40, 50, 60 points if you're laying it well. Doing combos, all that kind of thing. You're also going to be interrupted by monsters. Monsters tiles are just kind of these tiles that go in your deck and get in your way. Over the course of 5 rounds, you're going to be finishing that off, and that's basically the game. Most points wins. So, Brandt, did you get a chance to play this multiplayer?
So I haven't played it multiplayer. Literally, but I've played it multiplayer solo. This is how I learn games, as you probably know, but listeners might not know. I very often will play games two-handed in order to learn them. So I have played the mode, like the multiplayer mode, by myself. I'm very good at short-term memory loss. So I'm able to just play one side and then flip the timer and play the other side and then be like, okay, where were we? And oh, what was that person? Oh, I didn't even remember I was going for that with this person. It's probably like a Rado-esque thing, right? When he's playing himself and Jen on camera. I'm pretty good at doing that in terms of getting a game down. Anything with hidden information is very hard to do that with, but anything that's kind of like a Euro like this or just go is fine. So I played it in that sense.
This is a very low interaction game. In fact, we'll get to the solo mode in just a second. I have played the real solo mode, but it's very low interaction. There's a couple of tiles that kind of mess with other people, but for the most part, you're going to be playing your quote-unquote deck of tiles and making the best city that you can. So what'd you think?
Yeah, I really like the game. I don't know that I would say it's low interaction. I would say it's medium interaction because you're competing on influence for bonuses. Like the highest influence gets points and a bonus action, whereas after that you get either points or an action or just coins, and then you're competing to go buy tiles in the market first, which with 13 tiles out, there's pretty good odds if somebody buys one that you want, you're still going to have one, but I mean there is that kind of drafting interaction. So right. I'd put it at that medium level. There isn't that take that. There's only a few of those with the monsters. Yeah,
you can't really affect the other players' tableau. I guess that's what I meant. Where it's like, if they build it, you can't do anything about it. You may be able to pick off a tile here or there, but that's really it. I did enjoy this game, single player. In terms of a tile laying game, I like deck building. I don't like tile laying. I like the fact that the deck building motif gave me access to a good tile laying game. So I like tile laying okay, but I find that, if it's not like really, really basic, it escapes me. So like Carcassonne, if you play with the advanced scoring, which is the most interesting way to play, I find it so confusing. Like, okay, where's the field and what's this and what is this? This little man is over here. Does he count for this field or that field? And I don't I don't love that part. And there's very few tile laying games that I really enjoy. This one, the fact that they took the deck building part and like combined it into the tile laying part actually opened it up for me. And I don't know how you found the timer. I thought it was going to be frantic, which I was really afraid of because I think of Galaxy Trucker, because Galaxy Trucker is frantic and I hate that. This one is more like you can get everything done. I feel like the timer is there to prevent AP. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the timer. I definitely agree with you. Like the first round or two, it's not even a hindrance. Like you're going to get everything done. I actually found out too, looking at message boards, that the timer in the game, which is what I was using, is like a minute and 40 seconds, and I was not stressed, whereas it's supposed to be 2 minutes in the app that they have. They have like a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute app. And I think all of those are pretty good. I don't think 3 minutes is too bad. I'm not sure once you get to the later rounds if you start having like 20 tiles or if you go for like a get a lot of tiles strategy. It feels like you can't get all your tiles out, but I think that's what they're trying to do by saying, hey, if you're going to try to get 22 tiles, we're going to make it stressful for you to get them all out.
Exactly.
So it's like a balancing mechanism for that.
You could totally AP the heck out of this game. You could say you could have like a bunch of tiles down, like 7 or 8, and then you could pull a tile and it could go one of 4 different places. And you're sitting there going, okay, if I put it here, then I get 5 purples. If I put it here, then I get 4 yellows. If I put it here, then I get 3 green and 3 blue. But if I put it here, and like you could do that for each individual tile towards the end of the game. So the timer is there. A lot of people might get scared off of that. I got scared off of that. It's like, oh, I don't want to do real time, but it's not really real time. It's just a prod,
right?
To kind of hurry you along.
And honestly, it could be whatever you want. If people really feel like it's a hindrance to your group, then just make it 5 minutes. But you need some end that says you can't think about it anymore. And we're all agreeing to this timer, which could be nice in a lot of games for people that don't have AP to kind of let things run out. But of course, I know people that are prone to that. And if you try to say, well, you got to be able to think about it as long as you can, it could be frustrating for them in other games. But in this game, it kind of makes sense, because otherwise everybody would just sit there and be like, oh, wait. So you need some timer to end it. But honestly, I don't think it would be a big deal if it was longer. I mean, shorter, they say, is harder mode. It's just stressful mode. Right. It's not really hard mode.
It's stressful mode. It definitely it acts as a different part of your brain. Like you have to really remember everything that's in your deck. You have to really make decisions really quickly. Where you kind of lose a little bit of that more kind of puzzly maximizing aspect, but you might get with more turns. There's definitely a little bit of kind of slowdown after with the market phase, because then people are really thinking out. It's like, okay, what should I put in here? What do I have in here already? What will combo it well? And I found that the market phase took a long time, but it's fine. You can still get a whole game in like an hour, which I think is a sweet spot.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So then my difficulty with the game multiplayer, and we'll get to the solo in just a second, the monsters. So after every round, you put a monster in your deck. And if you're playing 4 players, then you get 4 different monsters. And the rules for the monsters are not written on the tile. They're written on this card on the side. So if it's a dragon, when you put it down, it like obliterates a adjacent tile. And if it's the giant, then it'll sit on another valuable tile. I found that I had a hard time remembering what each monster did as I was playing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you know what I was doing when I was playing solo, or even when I was playing my whatever two-handed souls, I just laid the timer flat whenever I drew a monster and read the card.
Oh.
And then I picked it up. But of course, if you were playing 4-player, it'd be a nightmare, because every time somebody draws a monster, you lay it flat. And even if I'm not the person, somebody else draws it and says, oh, stop, I'm going to keep thinking about my turn, so I'm going to get extra time. So that could frustrate people. Mm-hmm. There was something in the rulebook that said like you can use the same monster for 2 rounds, but there's only 6 of them.
For 2-player, you can.
For 2-player, you can't. Oh,
yeah.
And that would have been a smart thing for them to do. I felt like was okay. You're going to have like for your learning games, you're just going to have these two monsters doubled up. You're going to get two dragons, and you're going to get two liches. And then now you only have to remember two things. That doesn't seem so bad. But I do agree, their abilities were not like, you get -1 gold this round, or something that was easy to remember. It was like, take this tile, shuffle it into your deck, then, caw like a rooster, and then, do a back handspring, followed by slapping 5 with your teammate. Like, it was just, I can't remember all that.
Take all of your tiles in your tableau and turn them over on their backsides.
Yeah, and they were fine. I mean, I don't mean to make fun of the abilities, because I'm sure they were well thought out, and they're effective. They're even punishing was the frustrating part. When you get too many monsters in there, which is where the solo mode goes, they're just punishing you. Just, you're trying to figure out how to do this.
So, I mean, in terms of the multiplayer, the reason I had like a difficulty with remembering the monsters, like, you think about games that people play, and they're like the feature game that you play a lot. You're talking your Scythe, the Terraforming Mars, like you at the Portal Gaming Store in Manchester, Connecticut. How many times are you seeing people play certain games just all the time, right?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely games that just get taken off the shelf and played all the time. Or people show up with their deluxe blinged out copies, like Terraforming Mars or whatever,
Or Gloomhaven or something like that.
Yeah,
so is Sorcerer City that kind of game? I don't know. I don't think so, because it's light. And I think that the only people that are going to remember what every monster does, and, guarantee that everybody around the table is going to remember what every monster does, is if you play a lot. And I don't know if it's that kind of game. It's more the type of game that you play it and then you introduce it to a new group, or you introduce it at a game night, and you're constantly kind of introducing it to new players because it's this low barrier and it's fun, and, it should be accessible. But then you have this piece, the monster piece, that you're always kind of like starting from zero if you do that with the monsters, and that becomes a difficulty. I was able to remember it, but it was like definitely like a record scratch moment when I draw one. It's like, what's this? And I had some other players who were with me. They were saying, I just didn't do it.
Well, that's one way.
I'll do it next time, I promise.
Yeah, it would have been nice if there were simple things like, when you draw this monster, you get to place it, but you discard your next tile and you can't use it this round. Like, just something that was so easy to remember.
Right.
Or, your gold can't go past 10. Like, just whatever. I don't know. Like, I don't know how those balance, but those could have just been ideas that would make it simpler.
Easier to remember. Yeah.
I feel like if I were to teach this regularly, like if I was taking it to Jen's library club, I would just memorize 4 monsters and use those 4 monsters every time I was teaching it, and like pick out basic monsters, which might have been a good idea for them to do. Would be like, here's 4 basic monsters with really easy to remember abilities for your first game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, then you get stuck on those monsters, and people are like, how does it play with the advanced monsters? You'd be like, I don't know. I never get an opportunity to do that because I'm always teaching it.
Right.
So, I think they wanted to avoid that, would be my guess. But it could have helped to have some monsters where the abilities just weren't like a wall of text. Like, here's an index card,
Yeah, like you were saying before, something that's easy to track. That's just like a fire and forget type effect. So then this is where the solo comes in. That became more difficult because the way they did the solo was, so you have monsters that get distributed amongst the players. In solo, all those monsters just kind of flood the market. So then you're going to get a monster in your deck after every round, but then the rest of that pile of monsters, let's say it's dragons, 5 dragons are going to get put in the market, and they sit on top of tiles. And that happens every round. So you have to manage monsters. It goes from this building activity to this management mitigation activity. And that's not why I play deck builders. That's not why, there's a reason I don't play Agricola, because I don't feel like, it's basically a feed your people game to me. Like, if, it's this obligation, and I didn't find that all that fun. I mean, it wasn't the same game. It was a different game, and it wasn't, you might like that game. Like, if you're listening to this and you're saying, oh wow, that sounds like a real challenge, playing a tile laying game that just like puts so much in front of you, then go for it. That's totally up to you. For me, I guess I just didn't like that experience of just managing all those monsters and then remembering what they do, how they get in my way.
Yeah, it was interesting when I posted that tweet that you replied and you were like, hey, you got to come on the episode. I realized I had not played the solo mode. I had played my two-handed solo. And so I was like, well, I better go play the solo mode. And yeah, when I played it, it was similar. I felt like they were so worried about making a game you could lose.
Right.
As opposed to making a game where you could like play the game.
Right.
So it feels like someone in the solo community is just going to adjust this, or people are just going to figure it out. Like, okay, don't put all 5 monsters out, put 2. And you got to cover the highest cost tiles, or you got to whatever. I don't know. You just cover tiles, and now you're going to get monsters if you take those, and maybe you dance around it. And it would have been fine. I would have been perfectly fine with that. I mean, I'm sure some people would figure out how to just avoid that, but they would pile up over time, and by the end of 4 rounds, if you place 3 out there, everything but 1 would be covered with a monster. So you'd kind of be forced in the last round. But
right.
So it was a little much to get all those monsters and try to work with. I lost, so.
So did I. I don't think I even finished it.
Yeah.
This is not fun. This is not the game I've played it multiplayer a couple of times, and I like it. I mean, I can definitely recommend Sorcerer City multiplayer. The monster thing, that was my kind of hang up, but it's not terrible, and you can remember what monsters do, and over multiple plays it'll kind of become a little bit more obvious. But for solo, I was a little bit disappointed because that just wasn't my experience, and maybe it'll be yours, the listener. That sounds more appealing to you, but as a whole package, I can definitely overall recommend Sorcerer City. What about you, Brandt?
Yeah, definitely. And we jest. We're definitely obviously poking some fun at the abilities, but honestly, you get 1 monster around. There's none in the first round, which was great. That was a great idea from the developers to just not give you any monsters to deal with. And then you just say, okay, does everybody understand this ability? I'm going to read it one more time. This is what it means. Okay, we're flipping the timer. Go. And now, remember that ability? Now we're adding this ability. And I mean, the rest of the game is not that much that you can't remember those things. But yeah, overall, I really do enjoy the game. I don't think it'll be a game that lasts, that people will keep playing. And of these ones that we're talking about today, it was definitely lowest on my solo playlist. But I do recommend the game. It's very fun. I'm going to take it around and play it. But will I be playing it in 2020? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I had fun. That bottom line, a 7 out of 10 for me. That is Sorcerer City. So let us get to a game. I've not played this game. I'm generally not a polyomino guy. So I didn't go out of my way to seek this out, but I may because I'm hearing some great things just for people from playing it. But you have played this game. It is Isle of Cats from Frank West. Tell us all about it.
All right. So in Isle of Cats, there is this Squall's End Island with these very wise cats on it. That is, I guess, known to be a mystery or whatever, but you discover that it's true. But the evil Vesh is going to go and he's going to blow up the island because he doesn't like these cats or whatever. And so you've got to rush over there and you're going to rescue all these cats. But you realize other people are going too. And so now, not only do you want to rescue cats, you want to be the best at rescuing cats. And how do we decide who's the best at rescuing cats? Victory points. So there's your
everything.
There's your theme.
Actually, Vesh is a character in City of Kings and all of the other City of Games characters. It's all of one piece in Frank's universe.
Well, and again, I kind of, I jab at it, but it's way better than saying you got a bunch of polyominoes, you got to put them on a boat, or a board. So they put a theme to it, and so it was nice. But all that aside, I mean, it's not much on a theme game, but it's a great game. So there's actually a lot to this game because I saw a lot of people posting and I was like, what is this game? Like, what happens? Why do people like this game? I don't know that I'm not a polyomino guy, but I haven't been playing all the craze of polyominoes. I like Baron Park a lot. I like Patchwork immensely. It's one of my favorite 2-player games. So, I mean, in that sense, I really like polyomino games, but I didn't do the whole Uwe bunch of games and all that stuff, and I don't know what else is out there. I don't really like the roll and writes that are polyomino, but I'm not a huge roll and write fan, so there's that element.
Except for one game, which Mike Delisio is constantly reminding you that this is like Brandt's favorite game.
I do like Fleet the Dice game a whole bunch. It is true. So anyway, so what's happening in this is it's going to play over 5 rounds, and you've got a boat. And on your boat, there's 6 different rooms, and then there's kind of the deck. And so the rooms are just all the little squares blocked off. And you're going to go through several phases, so I'll just kind of run through that quickly. So first, you're going to take a bunch of polyomino cats out of the bag and line them up in 2 sections on each side of the board. And then you're each going to get 20 fish, and fish are your currency. Then you're going to draft. So you're going to get 7 cards. You're going to keep 2 pass, keep 2 pass, keep 2 pass, keep 1. But like terraforming Mars, you draft the cards, but you don't have to keep the cards. So you then pay fish to keep the cards. They have a cost in the upper left. So you don't pay, so different from Terraforming Mars, you don't pay a standard fee and then pay for the card when you play it. You pay up front, plan to play it. But you don't have to play all your cards that round. So what are the cards? The cards are lesson cards, which are basically lessons are ways you're going to score points. So there are public and private lessons. Private lessons I will only score, and I keep them secret. So there's so many cards. That's the other thing. There's like 200 cards.
Oh, God. Wow.
And so the cards are, have cats touching the end of the sides of the boat, have cats stretching across the boat, cover all your rooms. I mean, just you name it, there's a card for it. Especially if you get Kickstarter and expansion and that. I mean, you're getting up there with 60 lesson cards. Was smart in that you only shuffle like 3 sets of lessons in. So there's a standard set of lessons. And then there's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I imagine the Kickstarters go to like M. And you take 3 of those and play with them every game. So you've got these lesson cards that are going to score. Then you've got kind of like your anytime use cards, which just totally vary. Things like collect extra fish or reach into the bag and place a tile, whatever it is. And then there's this one's kind of interesting because actually Kathy and I just played tonight a couple hours ago. And in 2-player, it's kind of funny, but you take all these basket cards, and baskets are what you need to get cat. So basically for every basket you have, you're allowed to draft a cat that round because you need a basket to put a cat in. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. And so you play these cards like face down, these green cards, and you flip them over, and they have baskets and they have speed. So whoever has the most speed gets to go first, which can matter or does not. In the last round for us in a 2-player game, it mattered. The rest of the game, it wasn't as big a deal for 2-player, but I could see it for 4 being a bigger deal, although there's more cats based number of players. So then everybody goes back one at a time. You draft cats. If you buy from one end of the board, they cost 3 fish. The other end, they cost 5 fish. So you're kind of trying to figure out which ones you want. And they're all different shapes, and then you're placing them on your boat. You place one on your boat anywhere. After that, tiles have to touch each other.
Like what kind of shapes? Are we talking like Tetris shapes? Are we talking geometric shapes?
Well, they're all polyominoes from 1 to 8 spaces that they take up. So they're all shapes, I would say. Like they're all trying to be unique. Every time you look at one, you're like, oh, I haven't seen one like that before. So they take up, various space. There's a bunch of other rules, like if you cover this treasure map with the same color cat, then you're going to get to put a treasure tile. So there's all these little treasures, which are smaller so they can fill in the gaps, that kind of stuff. There's some wild cats that you can choose their color.
Ha
And then you play some of your rare cards and you reset. Now, one of the tricks is you get to keep any fish you didn't spend, and you get to keep any cards you didn't use. So your hand gets bigger and bigger, so you kind of can build up. So it's definitely not an engine building game, but there's a little bit of that, like, oh, I'm going to have this one big turn, which is pretty fun that you can do. So you do all that for 5 rounds, and then you score points. And points are going to be families of cats, so they're the same color cats that are touching on the map. You're going to score points, so it's giving you points for that. Then every empty room loses points, so that's kind of like patchwork. You're losing points. You need to fill them in. There's rats on your boat, so obviously you want to put the cats on the rats. Otherwise, the rats give you minus points. The lessons, and I think that's mostly it, and you total up your points to see who wins. There's a lot of layers. It's super thinky, which is really fun. It's a really.
It sounds like it's a little bit more than a patchwork. Is that fair to say?
It's definitely more than a patchwork. Those cards add a significant layer. Now you do get 7 cards, and I found typically in a round I was discarding 1 or 2 that were just like, this I can't do. Like this is too much. I got a big basket engine going. You get a permanent basket that you can use every round, and I was able to purchase extra ones. So I had a lot of baskets, but I didn't have a lot of fish. Meanwhile, Kathy didn't have baskets, but she had tons of fish. So we were seeing kind of those 2 resources being managed, which was interesting in terms of all that. But yeah, I could see where this is. It fits in that Wingspan puzzle exactly. There's not the engine build of Wingspan, and I think that's a big part of its popularity. I think the theme is a big part of its popularity.
Well, I love cats.
Right. And obviously there's like the great cat-dog debate. So I think there's enough people that don't like cats that are going to think that cats is like a bad theme versus birds, which seem to be very attractive in terms of that. So I don't expect this to catch on as much as Wingspan, but I see that same kind of idea, right? Popping up in January, February, getting played. So this is going to get a lot of play in conventions this year because it's going to be at like Origins and UK Games Expo and up here in the Northeast where usually it's freezing cold and right now it's balmy and 50. People are going to be going to conventions, local conventions, your cons and total cons and Granite Game Summit and stuff like that. So people are going to be playing this game because it's going to be out already. So I think that's going to give it a lot of traction for this year. It's really fun. It's a fun puzzle. I definitely think it's something you would enjoy because I think the pacing of the game is pretty solid. Like you're drafting simultaneously, you're doing things. It's just that when we draft cats is the only time it slows down. And there's no doubt you're thinking about your turn on other people's turns.
And I love cards. I mean, you talked about 200 cards. My favorite games tend to have a ton of cards because there's always interactions when it comes to that stuff. I didn't really know there was that extra layer on top of it. You made me more interested. You did your job, Brandt. Way to be a salesman.
Well, hold on. I didn't talk about the solo mode yet.
No! And then
I don't ever think I've come across a solo mode like this before. This feels extremely unique to me.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily revolutionary. It's almost like when Codenames came out and everybody's like, how did Codenames not exist already? So the solo mode in this is that you go to the island to catch cats, but your sister tags along. And she is well known for trying to steal your reputation. So she wants it to be known that she helped save the cats and, be more popular. So how do they do that? There's a deck. You play kind of regular, but there's a whole deck of solo cards of baskets and whatnot. And how that happens isn't all that interesting. You could kind of figure that out. But the scoring is what's so interesting. So over the 5 rounds, each round you flip one color of cat. And your sister's going to score 5 points, 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point for each of those colors. So you're trying to predict what she will flip in the end. Meanwhile, she flips over her own lesson cards where she's going to score points based on different things. So now, while trying to score your own points with your lesson cards, you're trying to mitigate her scoring based on what she's trying to do. So your own boat gets scored in 2 different ways. And you're trying to make your score beat that score.
Okay.
I thought it was great. It was so interesting because it was like, I want to get yellow cats lined up, but my sister wants yellow cats to be in pairs or whatever it is. That's not exactly it because they don't usually piggyback on each other. So you're trying. So while you're trying to score your own, you're trying to mitigate her score, and I thought it was super interesting. I lost.
Okay, I get that. I see that. No, it's cool. Like because it games like we talk about low interaction, high interaction, all that kind of stuff. Like when you have to really pay attention to what other people are doing, like that's what you're talking about, right? It doesn't not that you're affecting them, but you have to pay really attention. So like if you're doing a move that can give me 9 points, but it gives my opponent 8 points, then what am I really doing here?
Right. Yeah, and in this solo mode, that's very direct because I can, figure out those points, although you don't know what cards are coming down the line, which is really, it makes it interesting. I flipped one card that was score the highest scoring card again, and that made me lose. Because I mitigated everything but one card, and then that card. So I think I got like 120 points. I held my sister to like 35, but then the card she got that I couldn't hold back was like a 50-point card. Right. And it doubled. So I thought the solo mode was great. I loved it.
So do you have is there a copy at the Portal Gaming Store in Manchester, Connecticut?
I don't think we backed the Kickstarter, so I'm playing Brian's copy currently. But definitely a copy that could be around when people are coming around.
Absolutely. So that was Isle of Cats. I will get that game played. It sounds super fun. In terms of polyominoes, it has to be more than just polyominoes, which Patchwork is not. But this one sounds like it adds that extra little bit that I'd be interested in. So thank you very much. That sounds really cool.
Yep.
All right. So we are going to get to the next game, which is Last Bastion. I believe I talked about this when it came to our PAX recap, but I made the silly error of releasing our PAX episode, or my PAX episode, the recap episode, on Christmas week, so barely anybody listened to it.
Gotcha.
I have to remember that like people just want like top lists at the end of the year. They don't want like new stuff.
Yeah.
So I have to really remember that. Anyway, so I'm not even sure if I talked about this game or not. I definitely played it at Gen Con or at PAX Unplugged because I was interested. It is the re-implementation of Ghost Stories. So the basic Ghost Stories game, no expansion or nothing like that. It really is the same game. For the most part, I'd say like what 85-90% of the rule set is the same.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely. I mean, the rule set is exactly the same,
right?
I think. And it's just the abilities that changed.
The abilities changed, and okay. So what is Ghost Stories? Ghost Stories is you're playing a monk, and you have 9 squares that represent your village. There are 9 tiles, and each of the tiles has powers. And then there are these, so that's in the center of the board, and then there are these lanes that are outside of that 9 tile square. And ghosts, which are represented by cards, will be coming out one at a time and attacking the city in different ways. So some of them have little meeples that kind of crawl towards the center and haunt the villages, which is haunt the tiles, which is turn one over. Some of them, do some damage. Some of them lock up your resources. So you're constantly getting one by one. You're constantly getting just attacked. And then the guys, your guys are running, back and forth in the tiles and trying to deal with as much as possible. Famous for being a very, very difficult game, especially at 4 players, which is kind of the optimal way to play is, either 4 players or 1 person controlling all 4 Taoists, which is easy to do. So that game is super fun. It's a classic, but it's been out of print for a little while. It's kind of a little bit hard to get a copy, especially of the expansions. Yes, I got both of my expansions before they went out of print. Oh yeah, not giving them up. So I was looking forward to Last Bastion. What did it add? It basically took some of the rules and some of the effects that were annoying in Ghost Stories and fixed them. But that's it. Added nothing new. You're doing the same things. When I was playing, I felt like I was playing Ghost Stories, and I was doing the same Ghost Stories things that I've done for almost 100 plays, because I played the heck out of Ghost Stories. So in Ghost Stories, you could move and then do an effect, and you had to do that in that order. In Last Bastion, you could do either. You could do the effect and move or something like that, as an example of like a tweak that they made. And there's a couple of other little tile tweaks and card tweaks and everything, but for the most part, that's it. And I'm looking at it going, why did this need to be a whole new game again? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. It's so similar to Ghost Stories that, if you have Ghost Stories, there's just not really a reason to have it. I think that there's less cards to get to the boss, which I think it's called in this game. It's Wu Fang in Ghost Stories. Right. So it seems like they lowered the difficulty, but not much. It wasn't like they said, oh, you had a really hard game, you want an easy game? We'll make it easy and then scale it up. They definitely just like, instead of really hard, it's hard. That's what they did. Yeah. In terms of that. I mean, the minis are really nice. They're much nicer in terms of that. They changed the theme and updated artwork. I guess it's a little friendlier. There was a lot of like bloody ghosts and ghosts with like fangs and claws that were kind of in it. And now it's just kind of like evilish, demon-y things that are really humans attacking a castle. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is essentially the same exact game. In fact, the player powers are almost exactly the same.
And they fixed a couple of things with the red player. I think the red player is a little bit stronger. Famously weak in Ghost Stories. So like, I feel like this was the designer saying, okay, what are people complaining about? Let me just fix the complaints and re-release this thing. And really, you're going to give into the internet community like that? You're going to just design your game off of Twitter and what people are, and BGG, what people are bellyaching over. And maybe, yes, as a designer, you may be looking at it going, we could have done that a little bit better. Every designer thinks that their game is unfinished, and they love when a publisher just gives them another crack at it. I definitely get that. But like, to put it out there as a different game, like if this was Ghost Stories, second edition, I wouldn't mind so much. I'd actually be tempted to like, okay, maybe this is the real way to play. So then I can get the second edition and integrate what I already have, like in terms of White Moon and Black Secret. This one, I don't know, man. Maybe they're rebooting it. They're trying to re-release it. But in terms of a fan of Ghost Stories, which I think a lot of people are in this feed, if you're looking for something new, then sure, take a look. but I don't know. I'm disappointed in how little was new here.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Is Ghost Story still in print?
No, it is not.
So on that front, if you haven't played Ghost Stories, here's your chance. Go get Last Bastion, because I had a blast playing it because I forgot how good Ghost Stories is. So I mean, I hear what you're saying. If you already own Ghost Stories,
don't listen to me.
and all that, but if you haven't played it, like, go get Last Bastion and play this game. And the mini upgrade and hanging the little flag, I mean, those are nice additions. I agree with you. It's Ghost Stories 1.1 in terms of all that, but I really enjoy that. I do wish that they had, like, changed the player powers. Like, here's new player powers, and here's new tiles and a new way to play it. Like, at least make it like an expansion, with new abilities going on instead of kind of copying the old abilities.
Well, like a second edition. Like, that's what second edition should do. Like, you add more stuff. It's the same basic game, but like, this is Ghost Story second edition, but it doesn't integrate with what I have, so that makes me mad.
Yeah. No, and that makes perfect sense from somebody that already owns Ghost Story, which right. I do too, and I have the 2 expansions, so it's kind of silly for me to have it. But I know some people don't like the ghost theme, and so the, like, fighting people theme, they're like, oh, all right, I'll do that. So it works there. But yeah, if you haven't played Ghost Stories, then go get it. But otherwise, it definitely could be a pass.
Right. So that is Last Bastion. And so we will get to the final game now. So this was built upon a conversation that I was having in the One Stop Co-op Shop Slack. Go ahead and check out the show notes for One Stop Co-op Shop. They're open Slack. It is free to the public. You can join their Patreon if you want to support their channel and support their YouTube and all that kind of thing. But the community is free for all, and it is great conversation. And one of the things that came up was reviews happen, and then the game doesn't get talked about again. So this is my one little nod to that. We are going to talk about Marvel Champions again. However, it is continuing to be supported. So since we talked about it, they have released 2 scenario packs, the Green Goblin and the Wrecking Crew. They've released 2 new heroes, Captain America and Ms. Marvel. I have not played it. I have to admit, it's an 8 out of 10 game for me, but I don't think it's different enough from Tentacles of the Multiverse to really dive in. So I'm just kind of like on pause for now. However, my friend Brandt is in the tank for this game, and he wants to talk about the scenarios. I believe the Wrecking Crew you got a chance to get to the table most recently, right?
Sure, I'll run through it all, though. What the heck? I like talking about this game. So, don't listen to Jason. He's crazy. I mean, if you play Sentinels of the Multiverse, I guess I get it. But Marvel Champions is just a phenomenal game. It's super fun. I love the deck building. I love the theme of the game. There isn't really story, so that's the main thing here. But yeah, I've now clocked 100+ plays of the game since it came out in November, so it's just maddening. But and I've definitely probably 25 of those have been solo, but I usually play 2-handed solo. I like 2 heroes better. I am a loud proponent of this game being 3 and 4 player, which is what a lot of people are saying. Oh, it's just too convoluted with 3 and 4 players. Totally do not teach the game to 3 new players. But once you have people teach 3 players individually and then say, okay, you all now know the game, now let's play it 3 or 4 player, because the cooperation is so good when you get way more people and the opportunity for somebody to have like a mega turn. There's cards in the game that allow you to like decrease the cost by 1 of a card or draw a card. And if you get those in front of everybody, then you say, okay, who wants to have the big turn? They draw 3 extra cards, and 3 of their cards cost 1 less. It's like amazing. They just have this monster turn. So it's super fun. But anyway, so we'll talk about the stuff that came out. So let's do the 2 heroes first. So there's the Ms. Marvel pack, and the Captain America pack, which is confusing given that there's also Captain Marvel in the original one. But, right. I mean, people know these superheroes in general if they're, fans of Marvel. So they're going to know all this. So Ms. Marvel is like an engine build, get a lot of cards out. She can bounce a card back into her hand to use it again. So she uses a lot of events, and she can reuse them. And she can increase the ability on them, so she can both increase damage and she can increase threat reduction. So she kind of becomes versatile. Her pack comes with protection, a much-needed boost to protection, which was definitely the weakest of the 4 aspects. And there's lots of great cards like Preemptive Strike, which when the enemy draws a boost card and adds 2 to their damage, you say, no, and you bounce the damage back to them instead, which is very powerful. So
So then, just to clarify, the base game had cards for protection, cards for aggression. Does each hero pack have cards for all 4 builds, or does it concentrate? Like, only protection cards with Miss Marvel?
It has all 4, but there's more of the one that's in... So there's more of one in the hero deck. So the idea with the hero decks are supposed to be, take this deck, shuffle, and play. So they have pre-built decks in the hero decks, plus they add 4 copies of 3 other cards.
Okay.
So she had protection, so I don't know what was in her deck, but something probably more like 12 protection cards. And then there's 4 for each of the other, or 3? I think you don't have 3 copies, so I think there's 3 for each of the others, so 9 extra cards for those. So that's how they work. Then there's Captain America. Obviously, everybody's ready for Cap. He gets to start with his shield in his hand, so he digs it out of his deck. Get your shield in your hand, play the shield. The shield is awesome. It gives him +1 defense, and he retaliates. So if somebody hits him, he hits him back. And then his ability, his 2 abilities on his Steve Rogers side is play an ally for 1 less, and he has the leadership aspect. So he has a bunch of allies in there, Falcon and Squirrel Girl and others that people have been waiting for. And then on the other side, it's I can do this all day. So he taps, and then you can discard a card to untap and use them again. You cannot do that unlimitedly. It's once per turn. Otherwise, he would be broken. But it's a really good ability. There's actually lots of clever ways to use it. So you can block with him and then still be able to attack with him on the next turn or things like that because you could untap him and whatnot. And it's just the perfect ability for him. He comes with leadership, which was great. And some really neat cards that were there. And he's definitely a very strong hero. I'll talk about him when I get to Wrecking Crew in a minute and more of his cards. And I said leadership, so we're good there. And then they released the Green Goblin scenario pack. This was awesome because they released 2 scenarios. So there's the Green Goblin as Norman Osborn. So it's kind of him becoming the Green Goblin for the first time, I guess. I'm not sure exactly which story it's playing off of. And then there's the mutagen formula where he's just the Green Goblin. He's out there and he's just messing up New York City. The Norman Osborn one is kind of weird. He flips back and forth. He has these tokens, and when you attack him, you get rid of the tokens on a side card. When those tokens are gone, he flips over and becomes the Green Goblin, and then you put more tokens on. So he will only scheme on one side, and he will only attack on the other side. And unfortunately, it doesn't take long to figure out how to just kind of shut him down based on which side he's on. Solo, it could be a little tricky if you don't have the cards, but with 2 decks, it's like, hey, you take care of him on that side, I'll take care of him on this side. So that's famously the easiest of the scenarios at the moment. So I think people were a little disappointed in that one. I still think it's kind of fun, although I found when teaching new people and playing a 4-player game, that was not a fun one to play. It's confusing to explain all those extra elements that just aren't necessary, and it's not a difficult scenario. So that one wasn't so good. But the mutagen formula one is crazy, because when Green Goblin goes to the next phase, you have to kind of beat him in 2 phases. You beat him once, and then he gets back up, you beat him again. He adds encounter cards. So every round during the villain phase, everybody gets an encounter card, and that's just the deck of villain cards, and you do whatever they say. And he will make you draw extra ones. And if you play him on hard mode, you start by drawing 2 of those. So your first turn, you're going to deal with 3 of those cards each. So with 4 players, that's 12 of those cards. And then when he gets to the next phase, he gives you 3 more. So now you're going to deal with another 12 later on. 16 on the later on round before you defeat him. So that one gets really crazy.
Is that crazy in a good way, though? That sounds like where Sentinels of the Multiverse went wrong was putting too many cards in play at once.
No, because most of the cards are, what was the term used before? It goes off and you forget it. What's that term that you keep saying?
Fire and forget.
Fire and forget. Most of the cards are fire and forget. And if they're not, then they're usually minions that are in front of you. Okay. So there aren't almost all the villains have an attachment, but most of them don't have 13 attachments, right? Or this affects the environment, this affects the villain, this affects this player. There aren't a lot of those cards that you're going to have to deal with a lot of upkeep. Most of the cards are fire and forget. So they're pretty easy. You just flip them and go. And then the most recent one is the Wrecking Crew. And the Wrecking Crew, they really tried to show off some of their, design creativity. So the Wrecking Crew comes with 4 villains. They each have their own deck. They each have their own side scheme. And you have to take all 4 of them out. Now, only one of them is active at a time, so you only have to deal with one of them attacking you or adding threat to their own scheme. All of them, however, when they get 10 threat on their scheme, that scheme goes off and they do something major, deal 2 damage to every character, stun everybody, whatever it is. And so they're working their way out. The one thing that's a little negative in that one is that it's static. So all the other ones you can shuffle in these side scenarios, or you can put your obligation card, or there's the standard set where oh no, my arch nemesis might show up. But they couldn't really do that in the Wrecking Crew one with the 4. So the scenario is a really fun scenario, but it's kind of samey. Okay, we're going to take this character out, then we're going to take this character out, and obviously you're fighting 4 villains. Well, then you decrease it to 3, and then 2, and then 1, and it just gets easier as it progresses. Right. So the formula is kind of there. However, it scales harshly. Going from one player's easy, going to 2 is much harder, 3, 4. I think of Horrified, because I know you played Horrified a lot, or when it came out, and it was very easy 1 or 2 player. But when you get to 5 players, game's pretty hard.
I still played in therapy, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Funny enough, you mentioned that. I know, total sidebar, but I had a young girl who was having nightmares, and we ended up playing Horrified because the whole thing about Horrified was you running around, you're running away from the monsters, but then you find the monster's weakness, and then you can kind of tackle the monster. So it's we were able to kind of say, okay, nightmare is kind of dominating you, but you actually have the power if you do some preparation and kind of think about it a little bit, and then you could kind of turn the power around, get the power back, and kind of wrestle against your nightmares. So it's really, I mean, it might be a flimsy way to justify playing Horrified more, but it resonated with the person. That's kind of at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, No,
I think there's actually when you said it to me, I was that's definitely how you want to think about those kind of things.
It fits.
And it definitely gives you some positive energy towards that,
I have absolutely played Marvel Champions in therapy as well. No therapeutic value whatsoever. Just a bunch of people who like Marvel.
Yeah. So I really like Wrecking Crew. I don't think this will be a top tier villain that people will fight on the way out. Now, I was talking about Cap before. Cap has a card of Shield Throw, where you play the card, it's free, and then you discard cards. And for every card you discard, you deal 4 damage to a different enemy. That just it's brutal against the Wrecking Crew.
Okay.
You just get that, you do that once, you get that, do it again. They all have 10, 12, 14 health, something like that. Down the line, they're done. Right. So he's very powerful against them. But one of the things I like about Marvel Champions is I'm not, unlike a Magic or a TCG where I'm playing other players, I'm not trying to make the best deck. I'm just having fun shuffling them up and trying different combos, which Sentinels definitely has as well, for sure.
Well, unlike with Isle of Cats, you have not sold me on Marvel Champions. I need more story, man. I know what you said about, the Green Goblin is growing and everything, but that scenario was easy. I'm just not feeling the actual, it doesn't have to be a A to B, 3-act story or anything like that, but just some more immersion stuff. I guess I'm just not hearing it yet. I'm still waiting for that story expansion, which I know is coming sometime this year.
Yeah, I think it's July. Is what they're saying now. So we'll see what that does. But yeah, that's Marvel Champions. So I've really enjoyed all those expansions so far, especially the hero ones and the Green Goblin mutagen formula. Those have been the best.
All right. So that was us revisiting Marvel Champions. Maybe Brandt will be our Marvel Champions expert, just like Michael Kelly is our Arkham Horror expert.
There you go.
So we'll definitely check in on that. But wow, we have gone 50 some odd minutes. I didn't know we were going to go so long. I keep on doing that. I keep on thinking, we'll just bang this out in a half hour, but then
No, because I'm going to give you a bonus review. It's going to be a 1-minute bonus review.
Oh, okay. Man.
This is because you mentioned Fleet the Dice game. So I obviously love Fleet the Dice game, 2019 Game of the Year for me. And that's made by Matt Riddle and Ben Pitchback, and they just released a new game. It just came out this week from Renegade Games, and it's called Stellar. And it's a 2-player card drafting game where you're trying to use your telescope to look at objects in the night sky and then write about them in your notebook. And it's got really, really clever drafting mechanisms and really clever point scoring mechanisms. Reminds me a lot of their game Peep Mots, which was like the little bird scoring game where it's math, but it's not heavy math. It's just addition and multiplication, but it's really interesting in how you draft the cards and how you score the cards. And so I got a chance to play that. My biggest negative on it that it's 2-player only, but honestly, I wouldn't want to play it with 4 players because the AP would be pretty brutal. So I think that's why they made it 2-player only. But since I like their Fleet the Dice game so much, I'll give you the bonus review of Stellar from Matt and Ben and Renegade Games.
I am absolutely a fan of Matt and Ben ever since they made the original Fleet. A little bit of a misstep with Goonies, the adventure card game. I did not like that one in the slightest. But they're very prolific, very fun. And definitely. I mean, Brandt, if you guys want just a pile of games, I know we cover a lot of games here on Every Night is Game Night, and we're going to cover more next week. But every once in a while, we'll kind of change it up and give a discussion topic. Go over to Brandt's Portal Gaming Podcast on the Dice Tower. That man reviews at least 5 games every single episode. You're going to get some reviews, party games and 2-player games and strategy games. Every single kind of game. Brandt is a Omni gamer. So is Brian over there who helps him out on the podcast. He owns the store. So is Kathy. Kathy gets dragged along with all of Brandt's madness. There's a whole bunch of people. Larry and Gary stop by every once in a while. Go ahead and listen to the Portal Gaming Podcast. Was that enough of a plug for your show, my friend?
Yeah, definitely. I just really love talking about games. I totally love playing games and talking about games. And so, I've never really worried about like the numbers of people listening or the community that I'm building. I obviously want there to be a community, but I just want to talk about games and I want people to have a spot where they can hear somebody reviewing games and totally disagree with me, but at least hear what I have to say. So I just always kind of made it a goal to review as many games as I could in a year. And I think in 2018, I played like 300 and something new games. And that was the most I ever did in a year. And I'm more around like 200, 220 now.
All right. So thank you very much, Brandt, for stopping by and helping me out.
Oh, anytime.
And that is our episode. Go ahead and hit us up on everynightisgamenight.com, Every Night is Game Night Facebook group, ENGN_podcast, the aforementioned Slack channel with One Stop Co-op Shop. Go ahead and check out BGA Podcast. Their Patreon helps support what we do. It supports the hosting on everynightisgamenight.com. Those websites aren't free. Podcasting is not free. Every little bit helps. If you wanted to go to BJ Patreon, that helps us out. So until next week, go ahead and grab a game off of that shelf and let's make every night a game night.